Hey guys, what's going on? So lately I've been getting some requests about how I edit photos, how I compose my photos, and all that kind of stuff. So I decided I'd go through and make a video with photos that actually edit them. So I've edited one of these photos a little bit, but I've reset everything for the sake of this video. So I'm gonna go through, talk you guys through what I'm doing. I've made my mouse bigger. I've also selected it to show where I'm clicking. So hopefully that all works out the way it's supposed to. But without further ado, let's get going. So again, I've selected these 5 photos. I took about 200 to 300 photos last night, so I'm just showing you 5 of them. These are the 5 selected. So this is Dave from In Honor Of, long exposure. All the settings you'll see are up in this area. So if you have any question of what I'm doing, use these as your guide, and then know that when I'm taking my photo, I'm moving my camera, and that's how you get these light blurs, these kind of lines that you're seeing. My flash is also firing very, very bright on all these, which is why on a lot of them you'll see that the skin is very washed out. But again, I'll be fixing all of that in my post-processing. So all this editing is done in Lightroom, which is what most people are using for their photo editing. But yeah, here we go. So this is Dave from In Honor Of. This is Parker from Half-Hearted, Sean from Half-Hearted, Jay from Half-Hearted, and then my buddy Corey from Values. But yeah, so those are the 5 photos. Let's get right to it. So the first thing I do is I Command A the photos, which is select all of them. I like to go down here. First thing I do is sharpening right to about 75, and then I'll go to remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. So you'll see what this does is just kind of alter the photo a little bit. The profile correction fixes some of the fisheye effect that every lens naturally has, whether it's a fisheye or not. So that's what that corrects. The chromatic aberrations fixes a little things around the edges of a photo that we can't really see with our naked eye, but it does matter. And sharpening, pretty much, if I'm correct, it sharpens the smooth areas and leaves the rough areas a little bit rougher. So anyway, those are the first things I do to every single photo. Then I'll go through and start editing. So the first thing here, I'm going to fast forward through a little bit of this part because pretty much what I'm doing is just going through with my eye and seeing. So I'll do this one full and then fast forward the rest of them. But so this is Dave. So the first thing I'm looking at is noticing that, this is way too white. All of this is a little way too bright. So the first thing I'm going to do is lower the exposure a little bit. I tend to overdo it, realize this is too much, and then I'll kind of go up slightly until I see somewhere I like. So I like it right about in there. Then I'm going to look and see his skin still looks a little bit pale. His shirt's a little bit too white for me. So I'll lower highlights there. Now we see a little more detail right in this area. Go through, bump the clarity up a tad, contrast up a tad. All these things, the best way to learn it is just by doing it, so mess around with it. I don't really have a tip about, why up the clarity contrast +7 and clarity +23. That's different for every photo, as you'll see. It's just, for this one, that's what I think looks about right. I also noticed it's a little cold looking, so what you'll see is that's what this does. It's going to make everything really yellow or really blue. Just going back, this is where it's shot. I think his skin could look a little bit more lifelike. It looks a little bit pale for me. So I'm going to go up and bump this up just a hair, just to get a little more yellow in there. It really brings out these colorful accents as well. I'll go through and up the saturation a little bit just to make these yellows pop. Maybe darken the blacks, just to add a little bit. Shadows, just raise those a little bit. I kind of like how that looks. So that's everything. This is where it gets a little bit detailed. For a while, I would have just left the photo here, and for most photos, I would leave it right here. But for this one, I really like the colors. I really am happy with this flare right here and how it accents his face. I like how his face is kind of looking at the guitar. His hands look normal. Sometimes with guitars, you get their hands looking all crazy because they are doing crazy things. But personally, that's what I like. Also, it's worth noting, over here, you'll see that I have edited the photo before. And then, so these are all the changes I made before I exported it right here, and then I reset it. So that's where I'm starting. So if you're also kind of trying to keep track, this is a good place to follow along with what I'm doing. But anyway, so we're editing, and then I'm going to go down here into the hue saturation. So what this does, HSL, is hue, saturation, luminance. So the hue is affecting the color of the light, saturation is about how colorful the light is, and luminance is how bright or dark you want that light to look. So this one, what I kind of like is if I lower these a little bit, let's see, you're going to see a little more color come up with his guitar, as opposed to up here, it kind of washes it out. So his guitar is very nice, we want to accent that. This is a little bit too much. Over here looks gross. So I'm going to put it somewhere in here. So hopefully these reds kind of work with the red of his guitar a little more. That's a little much for me, actually. You're starting to see a little bit of his hands go crazy. And then maybe drop that down a little bit. See, I don't really like that yellow. It looks kind of pukey to me. But I like that right about in there. So for me, that's just about where I leave a photo. I don't need to do anything with any of this stuff because it's just not necessary. The last thing I usually do actually is go through and work on the crop of the photo. So for this one, I'm not a huge fan of these lights. They're kind of distracting. So I'll crop them out a little bit. I also know my watermark's going to sit over here, so that'll draw the eye. And the last thing I'll do is throw a graduated filter over this. So what this is doing is filtering an effect from over here to over here. So over here is going to be very dark and over here is very light. As you'll see, if I were to up the exposure, it's only doing this and then it gradually fades into less. Exposure is just the easiest one to see. But yeah, so I usually darken these up just a little bit just so I can keep the focal point over here and not get too distracted by what's over here. Bump the clarity down. Lower this. This white over here is a little bit brighter than I would like it. So I'll probably go through and darken that just a bit. That's a little bit too much. And so yeah, that's the first photo. My key to editing is, or my personal goal when I'm editing, is to make the photo look as if it wasn't edited. I want it to look normal, just a little enhanced, I guess. So this is the before of the photo, and this is the after. Alrighty. Next one, Parker. So again, this photo is completely raw. All I've done is adjust the two things I did at the start of the video, which is the masking and these two lens corrections. I like this photo. This photo was again long exposure, but for this one I took my flash off my camera. So you'll see the settings here. The shutter is open for a third of a second. So I pressed the shutter button, then fired my flash in my hand. But yeah, I'm going to fast forward through my editing this, but hopefully you guys can learn something from it. Alright, so that one was much quicker edit, much more simple. So everything was pretty much done up here. I think it's worth noting that I did kind of go into HSLs. And I wanted to play around with it, but then as I started to do it, I realized I didn't like it. So I just left them. I left it just as it was because I think it's good how it was. I think it's important to remember that not every photo needs to be edited through and through. Like if this is how you like it, this is how you like it, and that's how I like it. So that's how I'm going to keep it. Alright, on the shot. This is a very classic overexposure for me. So when I'm using my long exposure, my flash is very, 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 very bright. It's all the way up actually. So this is a lot of times what happens is skin gets very overexposed, but the black in the background is still very dark. This one was also with my flash off my camera. So it was a flash here, then another flash, which is where you get this kind of body shape ghost image behind him. I think it looks cool. Not a biggest fan of the photo. I think the principle and the concept of it is very interesting and really eye-catching. So I'll probably end up using it and sending it out to the band. Alright, so this photo is just about done as well. Here again we get the before, that's the after. Working with overexposed skin can be very tricky if your ISO is too high. So these I'm able to keep my ISO right at 100, which means that my camera isn't very sensitive to the light, which gives me a lot of leeway so there's not much noise if I start messing with this exposure right here. But just keep that in mind. My first thing is to lower the exposure, and then when that gets too dark, then I'll start messing with the highlights. Because usually when the skin is as pasty as it was, just like this, you really, these are the only highlights in the photo. Highlights are the brightest part, and there's going to be nothing brighter than this effectively straight white. But yeah. Alrighty. Here's my buddy Jay. This photo's a little more simple, but we see the same overexposure going on in the hand and his guitar, which is about this color. This part just caught my flash a lot more than this part did. We also see his face is a little overexposed here and a little better over here. So again, we're going to start with lowering the exposure. See, right out here is where I like the skin tone, but the skin tone looks a little bit too dark. Whole photo's a little too dark, so I'll lighten it up. Good. The photo is reasonably where I want it. Lower the highlights a bit. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Probably up the clarity a little bit. His hand's starting to look a little bit crazy to me. Just the coloring isn't quite right. So that'll take a little more work. Probably warm it up a little bit. It's a little bit too yellow. Bump it down. Darken those blacks a little bit. increase contrast. Saturation is where this photo is going to really start to get interesting. If I were to up it all the way, just so you guys who don't know saturation can see, it makes everything super colorful, or it takes everything into black and white. I kind of like it in black and white, but I'm not going to keep it there because I think the color really adds to the image. So I'll probably keep it here with a little bit flatter skin tone, just kind of so the whole image flows better, as opposed to oversaturating it where it kind of pops. I want you to really look at it and explore it a little bit with your eye. Maybe make it a little bit warmer. We'll be okay right out there. So that's about how that photo is going to finish. And then lastly, we got here Corey. I chose to use this one because the other ones that we saw before, oh sorry, so this is before and this is after. This one is underexposed as opposed to this photo we saw of Jay and this photo of Sean were both very overexposed. So going through, I think this one of Corey is interesting because it is a little darker, so you have to see how that works. So first thing I'm going to do is bump this up a little bit so you can see a little more of Corey. Turn down the highlights a little bit because his skins are a little too bright for me. So now we're starting to see that this looks very, very clear right along his base, right along his hands. His face is very clear, but it's a little blurry from this long exposure. So I'll probably bump the clarity up just to really separate him from the long exposure light spurs. Darken this, up the clarity. So his skin looks a little pale to me. I think we could add a little color to that because the flash. Let's probably warm this up just a little bit. That looks a little too yellow. So I'll lower it. I like it right around in there. Up the saturation a little bit. That's probably good. My only criticism of this photo now is this white spot right here. It's probably someone's arm or leg or some variety of a person. I really don't know what that is, but whatever it is, I don't like it in my photo. Go through and crop it one more time. Spin it just a hair till we lose some of that. Move it over so we get all of his hand in there. And we're good. I actually am going to move it just a little more because I'd like to get more of his hand in the photo. I think we're starting to lose it if we rotate too much. So we're there, and now we just have this little white spot. I'll probably go through, there's a couple different ways I can get rid of it. What I'm going to do is use this smart filter. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Use a spot remover. Make it a little bigger because it's all a consistent pattern. It should go away pretty cleanly, which it has. Actually, probably need to make this just a little bit bigger. But because that is a consistent pattern, I can go through, spot remove it so it's taking what's right here and dragging it over to here. Now we don't see the white thing and we're all set. So thank you guys for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And I look forward to talking to you guys next time.